Back on the show for episode 17, a first-time repeat guest. That must be a good thing, and none other than Joe Beimel. Yes, Joe Beimel back on the show, and we have a couple neat things to talk about. And Joe, first of all, the thing you actually sent out earlier this week, it's your 25th anniversary of your MLB debut, starting pitcher for the Pittsburgh Pirates, April 8th, 2001. Now, obviously, I think when we chatted offline and texting, you took a look at the box score, right?
I did, yeah.
Okay. Was there something I was going to ask you? You remember the starting lineup, but was there something that jumped out at you that you were like, "Oh, I forgot about that"?
I think one thing you mentioned was like Billy Taylor pitched in that game, and that was his last appearance in the big leagues, and I kind of forgot he was on that team. I remember him from spring training. He was an older veteran player, had some years with the A's, but just a really good dude, funny guy. But I did not remember that, one, he even was in the big leagues with us that year, and then obviously it was super early, but he only pitched that one game, and then that was it, and then his career was over after that. So that was one thing that stood out. Obviously, I always remember Aramis Ramirez 3 homers, just because that was pretty awesome. And my first game pitching, it made it so much easier to just go out there and throw strikes and not really worry about the score of the game, and didn't really dictate the way I pitched. So I was able to just go out in my first outing ever and focus on throwing strikes, getting guys out, and then everything worked out pretty well for me in that game.
Well, let me recap here. It was the 3 home runs helped the Pirates beat the Astros at Enron Field 9-3. That was down there, so that improved the Pirates to 3-3. But you went into that season, Joe, the highest level you pitched at Altoona, Double-A, and you made the team. Now, and we'll go to the story that's in the Post-Gazette here in a minute, but you were an emergency starter for that game, and so you weren't projected to be a starter in the rotation, let alone make the team as that spring training started. Explain the process of where all of a sudden Joe Beimel's pitching the Pirates 6th game of the year out on the mound as a starter and getting the win one game before the stadium debut of PNC Park, by the way. Crazy spring for you. Explain exactly how that all came together.
Yeah, so I got put on the 40-man that off season. I think I'd pitched like 10 games in Altoona. I was in Lynchburg to start the year in 2000, pitched well there. Got called up to Double-A and pitched probably better than my numbers were. I didn't really have any wins, I don't think there, maybe one, but the last game of the year was against Akron, and it was like a do or die game. So it was like, if we won the game, we made the playoffs. If we lost, we were done. And it just so happened, the Cam Boniface in the stands, the Pirates GM at the time, a bunch of the brass, front office guys were at that game, and I came out and started, and I think I struck like 10 of the first 11 or 11 of the first 12 batters I faced. I struck them out. Wow. So it was a really good showing for myself, with all those people there with right at the right time. Like I said, a do or die game. So definitely cemented my 40-man spot, I think, at that point. But going into that off season, I wanted to pitch in like the Arizona Fall League and that kind of thing. And they were like, absolutely not. Cause I threw, I think 180 innings or somewhere around there, that minor league season in 2000. So I'd thrown a ton of innings, but me back then, I didn't really care about innings. It didn't matter to me. Pitch counts weren't that big of a deal back then. Inning totals. I mean, I think if I would have pitched 180 innings in the big leagues last year, I would have been top 5 or 10 in the league. Oh, yeah. And back then that wasn't even, you wouldn't even be in the top 20, so there wasn't that much emphasis put on pitch counts and inning totals. But anyways, so I go into that off season, and the Pirates did like a mini camp before spring training, everybody on the 40 man. So we all went down in like January to Bradenton, and that was Lloyd McClendon's first year, as the manager. So he, had this little mini camp thing in January. It was just to get everybody to know each other going into spring training and golf a little bit and work on some baseball things and just kind of get together before the season. And I was living I guess I was living in St. Mary's at the time. So I flew into Pittsburgh. So I was on the same flight home with Lloyd McClendon. We were sitting across from each other, and he just said, "Hey, what's your goals for this upcoming season? Your first year on the 40 man." And I said, "Well, my biggest goal is I want to make your team out of spring training." And he was just like, kind of looked at me weird, like, what the heck? Like this young kid thinks he's going to make make the team out of spring his first year on the roster. And, he was probably expecting me to say, "Oh, I want to have a good spring and maybe get called up in September or something." But I was like, no, I want to be on that team out of spring training. So I think me just saying that and having the confidence to tell that to the manager, he kind of kept an eye on me in the spring. I think and then I went in and pitched pretty well that spring, and wasn't really over.
Some guys got hurt too, Joe. That led to the opportunity as much as you performing well, right?
Absolutely. Everything it was kind of the perfect storm. So it was, I went in, I pitched well, but at the end of the day too, I'm still sitting there in the clubhouse looking around like, hey, I'm still here. Like, this is kind of crazy, and I believed I was going to make the team, but you still have those doubts a little bit. You don't know what's going to happen, and there's so many things out of your control. But that did happen. We had some guys who were probably supposed to make the team, had low performance in spring. They got released. I was still around. We had a couple guys get hurt. And so, going at the end of spring training, they called me and told me I made the team. But I didn't think I was going to start. I was basically just in the bullpen as a second lefty. Scott Sauerbeck was the, number one lefty out of the pen. And then we had Terry Mulholland. He was going to be out of the pen, but then he had to start.
Right.
And we just had a couple guys just went down, got hurt, and they put me in the starting rotation for my first game. So, it worked out well in my favor. And then I think we signed like Ramon Martinez after that. Yeah. And then so I went back in the pen and, pitched well out of the pen. And then they put me back in the rotation. I don't know. I think in June. I'm not sure what date it was, but
you made your first start, then you made 16 relief appearances, and then you made 14 starts, and then back to relief, and then you finished the season in relief, picked up a couple wins then, and then the rest of your career starts came the next year, and then you went 495 straight relief appearances to finish your career. So opportunity and performance, right? And you really achieved a pretty big goal there.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. Obviously I was prepared and I would put in a lot of hard work just in case that situation arose. And, it's like with anything, you never know when your time's going to come. You never know what's going to happen, what's in the cards for you. You can just control what you can control. You can do what you can. So when you do get that opportunity, you're ready for it and not overwhelmed by it. And, for myself, I always look back at that, and I honestly don't remember like vividly a lot during that game. I think I was just kind of maybe a little bit in shock or whatever, but I was just going through it, sticking with my routines that, had got me there, and just trying to focus on winning the game and pitching well. And I did kind of forget to step back a little bit and go like, wow, I'm pitching in the big leagues right now. I had done that earlier when we had played the exhibition games against the Mets at PNC. I got to come in that game, and I was like, this is pretty awesome. But that was, to me, that didn't count. That wasn't a real game. So when I did finally get into that real game, I by no means was overwhelmed or anything like that. I wasn't nervous. Um, I just don't know if I blacked out or, or what happened, but I don't remember a whole lot from it.
So the front page of the Monday Post Gazette, your debut was on a Sunday. I remember that. And the debut, the front page of the sports section was Pirates power past Astros. Nice alliteration there. 9-3. Ramirez's 3 homers helped Beimel win debut. Robert Dvorak was wrote the story. He covered the game. But the main story on that front page was Tiger Woods getting his career Grand Slam and winning the Masters. So that was the big thing. You do not have a photo in the section. Major League win in your debut, and it's all about Ramirez. But the quote, I can't say I was nervous. I was just real anxious to get out there, said Beimel, the first player from Duquesne University to be drafted by the Pirates. Lloyd was a little nervous for me. I didn't have to be. And then I felt real fortunate to get out there and help the team out. Anytime the team goes out and scores as many runs as we did in the first 3 innings, it makes it a heck of a lot easier to pitch. When that happens, you can concentrate on keeping the ball down, throwing strikes, getting ahead of batters. I can probably count on 2 hands how many changeups and sliders I threw. And then Lloyd's McClendon, the manager, quote, he sure gave us 5 quality innings that we desperately needed. I didn't think he was going to be intimidated by what was going on in the surroundings. He proved me right. He didn't get shaken by anything that was going on, which points back to your private conversation on the plane and your relationship later when you pitched for him out in Seattle, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That was the reason I went out there. You know, it was a case where, like I said, a kid who never pitched above Double-A, and not that I even pitched a full season in Double-A, and he had enough confidence in me to bring me up. In that situation. And then years later, I had a chance to sign with a couple different teams, 2014. And for me, it was an absolute no-brainer that I had to go there because I knew he took care of me as a younger player. He's going to take care of me as an older player. Basically told me up front, and even though I hadn't pitched in a big league game since 2011, and then had Tommy John and pitched a little bit in AAA 2013, but he's like, hey, you're going to make this team. So if you sign with us, I'm going to put you on the team. As long as you're healthy, you stay healthy in the spring, you're going to make it. So that was a good, it's always nice to have that kind of security when you're going into spring training, because you just never know what's going to happen, especially, like I said, I hadn't pitched in the big leagues in so long and was coming off an injury. But all I had to do was stay healthy. I knew I was healthy. I knew I could still pitch.
Right.
So it was one of the more comfortable spring trainings that year in 2014, because I didn't have the stress of being like, oh man, am I going to make this? Or I got to freaking pitch every single time out. I got to throw up a 0 and I got to dominate. You can really just go in, concentrate on throwing strikes, getting your work in, doing the things that you need to do that are going to help you through the course of the season, and not just go out there 100% just trying to blow it out every spring training outing. And then by the time you get into the season, you're exhausted because you spent all that time just trying to make the team. So huge benefit having him then as well. And like you said, it all stems back to that year. And really that plane flight back to Pittsburgh from the mini camp in January of that year.
Talking with Joe Beimel, reminiscing his first major league appearance 25 years ago this week with the Pittsburgh Pirates. How exciting was it to play that first season in the brand new ballpark at PNC? I mean, you said you pitched in a scrimmage or an exhibition before the season started. What was it like then? And I assume that stadium still ranks pretty high on your list as favorite venues to be around, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That year was awesome, just because I grew up going to Three Rivers, and I love Three Rivers. I got to play there a couple times in the All West game in Legion, and then our Legion team, I don't know if we played there twice, maybe just once. We sold tickets like whatever, and then got to play a game there.
Yeah.
So I got to play in the stadium, not necessarily in a big league game, but like I said, I grew up going there, and now all of a sudden, the first year PNC, just walking out on that field for the first time was like, holy cow, this stadium is amazing. Just that backdrop. The stadium itself is beautiful, and it really is the nicest, the most visually pleasing stadium in the big leagues, without a doubt. And I can't even think of what number 2 is. It's that far above everything else. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. The historical places, right? Like Boston and Wrigley, but that doesn't mean they're necessarily the greatest ballparks to be in, right?
Yeah, right. I love Wrigley Field, my favorite place on earth. So that one's tough to beat. But at the same time, I don't walk out on Wrigley Field and look and go, "Oh my gosh, look at that! That looks awesome." It looks kind of crappy, to be honest. Same thing with Fenway. It's old. There's no other way to put it. It's just super old. Clubhouses are teeny tiny, small. They're not necessarily the cleanest, in the halls and things like that. There's water everywhere, and it smells weird, and things like that. But you get out on the field, and the playing surface isn't great either. Like, if you want to talk about playing surface, you go to like Los Angeles, Dodger Stadium playing surface is immaculate. Same thing with Anaheim, and a lot of those stadiums out there, just simply because the weather is so much better.
Right.
So,
were you ever in Tiger Stadium?
I was not. Nope. I was never at Tiger Stadium. That was one that I didn't make it to. So I think I figured out I played basically in every ballpark. The only one, now, is the new Braves place. That was, opened after I was done playing. But, some of the ones that I played in a bunch that aren't around anymore either, like Shea Stadium, Old Yankee Stadium, Pro Player, or what, it had 20 different names, down in Miami and Montreal, Old Synergy in Cincinnati. I mean, there's just a lot. So I think there's 10 other stadiums that I played in that don't exist anymore. So just definitely a cool experience.
No doubt. Let's talk. Give me some perspective here. I mean, everybody's pretty excited about Konnor Griffin and what the Pirates have committed to with him and what they agreed to. The team, there's a lot of baseball left. We don't know where that's going. In fact, they're getting ready to start in Wrigley. Speaking of Wrigley and the Pirates, they're getting ready to play this afternoon on a Friday. What perspective do you bring to that, seeing what this Griffin kid has shown, what the Pirates have done, and what's looming? Because we know that there could be a work stoppage and everything like that, but it seems like both sides agreed with this 9 years. They're buying 3 years of control. They're giving him 3 extra years on top, but there's a lot we don't know after this year. But nonetheless, he's sewed up.
Yeah, I think obviously smart move by the Pirates on that end. And I think that the kid wants to be in the big leagues. Obviously, he seems to be ready. You never know. It's a long season, so he can come out a reckless abandon the first month or two, and then things start to catch up to you a little bit. But with that being said, he could be that good where it doesn't really matter. He can, we've seen guys like that in the past with like Griffey Jr. and Andrew Jones, and guys who came up really young and they just became Hall of Famers. You know what I mean? So hopefully that's the case, because it's just one of those touchy situations, because you just don't know how a young kid that's a teenager literally is going to handle those kind of pressures. And I think so far he's doing well, but I think he also provides a big spark for that team offensively, because I didn't think they were great offensively, and I thought that and their bullpen might be kind of their Achilles heel they weren't going to have a good season. Those would be the two reasons, which are two big reasons, right? So starting pitching though seems it's going to be really good. But I'd love to see him just have a great career and figure it out on the fly. But with that being said, smart on the Pirates, but they weren't going to call him up and just kind of give him a couple of years to figure it out if he didn't sign that deal. And it seems like a lot of money, but at the end of the day, the superstars in the game are getting paid way more than what he's going to be making, over the course of this contract. So he kind of took, I think, a little bit less, and it seems just so he could start his career right now and not wait till when Pirates thought, Pirates make a lot of decisions based on money. It's not a surprise there, but that's just how they always do it. And not to say that's right, not to say it's wrong, but they tend to do that a lot. And I think this was actually a good move on their part because they did bring him up and they are committing a lot of money for the Pirates. In the grand scheme of things, it might not be a lot of money for a lot of organizations, but they tend to do things a little more frugal, we'll just say. But yeah, I think it's a good move on both sides, and it gets the kid to the big leagues where he probably belongs. And then, you get to see him for a lot of years in Pittsburgh.
No doubt. So we have this ABS system now that Joe Beimel didn't get to use when he was a pitcher. And right now, here's the stats. 749 challenges right now going into today, I think. 387 are successful. So 54% rate of successful challenges. The batter is 47%. The defense, almost always the catcher, as you would guess, is 60%. What's your take on all that? Would Joe Beimel enjoy this situation? What's your, and do those numbers surprise you at all? What's your take on all the automated ball strike system?
I kind of like it. I think I would enjoy it. I know when I was with the Dodgers 1 year, I think our PR guy came to me and said, "Hey, do you realize you're like leading the league in balls, strikes being called balls? Like you're number one." And then I think Takashi Saito was like third or something, and he was our closer. And I was just like, "Oh man, I didn't realize that." Yeah, I was like, I feel like I get like a lot of calls, but apparently I don't. I'm getting screwed all the time. So I definitely would have liked it, especially when I threw a sinker. I think my sinker was hard to tell where it was in the zone. So I would have enjoyed it. I think I just like when the game is like whatever is being called is what it is. Like I never had an issue with challenges or anything like that. Like if somebody was out at first if I'm pitching and somebody's safe at first and they call them out, it's like it doesn't bother me if that gets overturned to the right call, because that's what you want. That's what you always want. And even with the strike zone, the only thing I don't like about it is I'm not sure how accurate it truly is, because what I've heard is like it takes from the middle of the plate rather than the front of the plate, and it's more of like a 2D zone rather than like the 3D zone box that a strike zone really is. Okay. So I think it's close. But what's happening too is you're seeing like calls being turned at 0.1 inches that if it is the real strike zone, those are probably not going to get overturned. But because what's the plate? 16 inches long. A ball can move that much in the time that it takes to travel like 8 inches. Just because these guys are so good, so the pitchers are so good, and they're manipulating the ball and making it move so much. That when you're overturning a call by 0.1 inches, that better be pretty freaking accurate, Right. I don't know if it's there. I'm not super educated on that side of it, so I couldn't say one way or the other. But
yeah, does this hurt the offense? Does this hurt the offense or help the pitchers more, you think?
I don't know. I don't know if it. I don't think it benefits anybody more. I think it goes at bat to at bat who it helps. Because you are seeing, the hitters have a great judge of the zone. I mean, it's kind of amazing. You have some delusional ones who think everything's a ball, but
right.
You'll see some of these guys, they're super confident when that ball is just not even an inch off the plate or an inch up or down. And I think that's what you're seeing more. You're seeing more of the zone up and down. Is there aren't a whole lot that I've seen getting called, left and right, like off the plate. It's usually more of those ones that are angled kind of down and way or up and away or up and in. Those are the ones that are kind of getting overturned. And even on the umpire side, I've seen a couple where the whole ball is in the zone, and they're calling it a ball, or the whole ball is out of the zone and they're calling it a strike. But it's few and far between. So even the umpires are pretty good. You're not seeing crazy calls where they're like, how'd you miss that? And like I said, I have social media, so those are always highlighted. But there just aren't that many of them.
No, I don't think the ABS is telling us that the umps suck at all. I think that's a very difficult job, and really of the three of the four components, the pitcher, the batter, the catcher, and the umpire, aren't you on the mound the least likely to get it right because you're the one that just threw the doggone ball, and you can't have that perspective that the other three have, right?
Right. Well, I say this all the time too, is there have been so many times in my career where I've thrown a ball and just been like, what the heck is going on? Why didn't he call that? And I would have swore to you it caught all the plate. And then I'll go in and look at the video and I'll go, oh geez, that wasn't even close. No wonder why. So I think with that too, pitchers, it's tough for a pitcher to see what's a strike, what's a ball. Just because it is kind of a violent motion, and sometimes your head snaps down and you lose sight of the plate for a second, or whatever it is. Or I think maybe all pitchers are just delusional too, that they think everything they throw is a strike. That's probably my case. Yeah. But that's why it's good. You have the catcher back there, who can, they know the zone. So they're going to, if something they think is a strike. And the thing that I love is you will just see guys multiple times in an at bat. They're just like tapping their hat or helmet. And a lot of times they're getting them, where they would have been struck out or something like that. They're actually getting a walk or getting another chance to hit. So I have yet to see one overturned where it's like they got struck, they got punched out or something, and then they overturn it and it's a ball, and then they hit a home run next pitch.
Right.
I haven't seen that yet. Maybe it's already happened, but that's where I think the biggest benefit will be and vice versa. Maybe somebody walks with the bases loaded, or, and then they're actually struck out. So I think those will be the biggest factors. And I think that's when it'll kind of be the coolest part of it.
And the more data we get, the more interesting we're gonna, find some things, I'm sure. And there's gonna be something that that comes up, or like, wow, we didn't think of that, or boy, that's never gonna happen. That it would never have happened in the old era. It's gonna be very interesting as we see moving forward. So, hey, congratulations! You were on the D9 Dream Team, all-time baseball dream team, and now I did this about in the mid, I think I think Devin Mesoraco was still playing. So 14, 15, I did this project, and I come up with any D9 natives that had a career in the major leagues. Now, it wasn't a roster. It was kind of a representative lineup with a bullpen and some starters. So there's some guys that aren't on here that had a representative career. You're a reliever. So congratulations. What did you learn? Did you learn any history by checking this out? I found it fascinating research.
Yeah, I did. I I just think the sheer volume of guys from the area that played in the big leagues, I had no idea. Especially the amount of guys in like the late 1800s, early 1900s. Some of those guys on some pretty good teams that I just didn't realize, came from around here, and it was really cool to see. I enjoyed, that podcast, and just kind of learning some of those guys, and I love baseball. I wouldn't say I'm as big of a historian as you by any means, but I grew up collecting like baseball cards and stuff like that. So I have some older baseball cards and have some from the 50s, 60s, 70s, stuff like that.
Ooh, but which card is worth the most in your collection? How about that?
Oh man, I don't want to talk about it because it's a sore subject. So I had this Roberto Clemente card, all right, and I had it at my parents' house, and I think it was a 50. Man, I can't remember what year it was. It's the one where like it looks like the end is kind of like the picture's kind of rolled up. It's not really rolled up, but on the card.
Yeah. Is it brown?
And it says it says Bob Clemente on it. It doesn't say Roberto.
Late 60s.
It might be a 62.
Okay, so
I think it might be 62. Yeah.
Okay.
So I had that, and I was looking, one of my cousins was going through like a bunch of his cards, and he had like the PSA app, where they PSA like grades the card, you send them in, and they basically give you a scale of 1 to 10, 10 obviously being the best. So I was looking at this, I was like, well, look up this Roberto Clemente card. And he's like, oh, well, this is a card. There are no PSA 10s on there. They haven't had one. It doesn't really exist. So the best one is a 9. And this card, if you have a PSA 9, this card's worth like, I don't know, 100,000 or 700,000 or whatever it was. I can't even remember. I'm like, holy crap. Like, I was like, what? Like, I've never taken this thing out of the case. Like, it's this, from whatever I got it, I never took it out of the case. So long story short, I go over to my parents because that's where all my cards were. Now I have all of them at my house. But so I go over and I'm like, hey, where's that? Telling my parents, like, hey, where's that Roberto Clemente card? They're like, oh, it's in the case. And I said, well, I know it's in the case. But where is the case? They're like, no, it's in the trophy case in the bedroom. And I'm like, why is it in the trophy case? So I go in, and, it got put in a little like picture frame, taken out of the case, put in like this picture frame. I don't know why, but ended up having like a ton of light damage, from like the sun beating through, and like faded it. And then it was all scratched up from being in the thing. And I was just like, my heart sunk into my freaking stomach. I'm like, oh no. So that would have been, now it's like basically trash.
Yeah.
It's like
I think the
beat
one
up.
The one that I have, it's not a PSA 10, but my son, we just did this over the winter when he was home, and we got out my albums. I have them all over the place, and I used to collect, of course. I have a Walter Payton rookie card, and
nice.
But maybe PSA 6, but that's 5 digits in mint condition. So,
it's crazy. I went through a bunch of my cards. Basically, went through all of them. This past winter, it was a freaking cold winter, wasn't a whole lot to do, so I was just in the house. I went through like every single card.
It's interesting.
And then I had some unopened packs, of some upper deck cards, and they were just like bricked together, just like all stuck together. But I did end up having 2 Derek Jeter rookies in there.
Ooh.
So I was able to kind of get those apart without damaging them. So I was pretty pumped about that. But yeah, it was cool to go through, and some of the stuff I have, like had a bunch of Michael Jordan cards.
Wow.
And anything you have Michael Jordan is worth a lot of money. And then there was even a card I had. It was not Michael Jordan. It was just kind of a common card. I can't remember the guy's name, but he played for the Heat, Miami Heat. But Jordan is in the card guarding him, and just because he's on the card, it's worth like $500. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. And it's just a common dude, like Vinny. What was his name?
Vinny Del Negro. His name
I would know. No, actually, man, I don't think it is.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
And then I've got like there's like a Mark Jackson card, and Menendez brothers are in.
Oh yeah, they're in the background. Menendez.
They're in the background. I was like, I know I have that card, and I ended up finding it, so I have that one. That was another one that's just worth like a lot of money, just because the Menendez brothers are in the background, like at the game.
And they were just. Yeah, they murdered their parents. Yeah. They're in jail. That's why that card's worth something. Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. Yeah. Joe, great having you on the show. And I want you to. We'll finish with you talking about where else we can hear you. You have a podcast that's very, very active. Beimel Athletics or Beimel Elite. Explain where we can, where people can see you and talk, because you have a lot of good insight on training and pitching and athletics. Give a plug there on that.
Yes. So, me and my business partner, Brent Dean, we founded Beimel Elite Athletics together. We decided to kind of start a podcast. We get so many questions throughout the year, and the same things pop up all the time. And I always feel like we both have kind of a vast knowledge of training, baseball training, and different things, obviously, within the game. So we would find ourselves sitting there talking on the phone and having like hour-long conversations about things, and obviously business stuff, but then the kind of the issues that pop up with all of that stuff. And so we're like, let's just start a podcast just so we can put that information out there, and then really just do it for ourselves. It's kind of like an outlet to always look forward, because we record them on Wednesdays. And it's just fun to sit there, and we usually try and keep it an hour, but then it'll be like an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. We're still going. It's like, all right, we got to wrap this up. But yeah, we named it the Battery Podcast, just because obviously I was a pitcher, he was a catcher, and then we're kind of the battery that powers Beimel Elite Athletics as well. So that's on right now. We have it on YouTube. I'm trying to get it on the other platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts or whatever that's called. We record it through like Riverside, and I got like the mobile version where you can't put it on those platforms, so I have to switch it over to the so I have to switch it over to the the regular computer version, and then I guess it's super easy to publish them on those. So eventually, hopefully within the next week or so, we'll get them on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. But right now it's on YouTube, and like I said, a lot of times we don't even know what we're going to talk about until the day of. It's just like, hey, this kind of popped up, let's talk about this today, and we try and stay on the subject of whatever we're talking about. But we'll tackle things from baseball recruiting to why there's so many injuries to different strength routines you should be doing as a baseball player in comparison to other sports. So yeah, it's been fun, like I said, and there is a lot of information on there for anybody who wants to join in and listen.
Awesome, Joe. Hey, have a good spring. Rest up from the bowling season. Get ready for the fall. I know you finished strong. What's our total now? 3 career 300s?
Yep, I had 3 this past year. So our Thursday night league just ended last night. I got most improved, because I hit 203 last year. I averaged, and then this year I averaged 215. So they gave out like all the awards and stuff last night. Pin? So I got high. No, just money. You get money, which is way better.
Yes, of
So
course.
yeah, I had like high game, second high series, most improved. Our team got high game. And our team, the finals were last night, and our team won second. So it was a good year, but my Wednesday night league's still going on. I think we got like 3 more weeks in that, so I'll
Holy
still
cow,
have some. Yeah, it's a long, but yeah, it's almost as long as baseball season.
absolutely. It's
But then
amazing.
I'm coaching Little League this year too, 11 and 12s in Fox. So I think that'll keep me pretty busy this spring.
All right. Well, we want to see you coaching the All-Star team. I want to see how good a quote you are after games. So we'll run into each other in the circuit in the summer. Hey, thanks, Joe. Have a good spring here.
Yeah, thank you.
Have fun on that Little League field.
All right. I appreciate it. Good seeing you. Good talking to you.